My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
This episode is brought to you by Abercrombie. There's nothing better than the perfect jean and going out top combo, or an outfit that perfectly matches your plans. Abercrombie's relaxed jean goes with every occasion. Date nights with something lace, or daytime with a cozy sweater. And their barrel jean will surprise you. It's the trend that will become a staple in your wardrobe. Abercrombie denim comes in tons of rises, fits, and washes. Find your perfect pair online or in store.
Hey there! We're Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy, your book besties who take the novels you love seriously.
We embrace and respect modern fantasy, romance, romantasy books written by women, and so it is in our nature to analyze these books as we would any other novel we might have dissected in school.
With our combined 13 years of literary academic training, we use our education to analyze and give voice to reasons you may love or hate today's popular books.
This is Jac.
And I'm Amy.
And this is part 2 of this week's episode where we're discussing chapters 11 through 15 of Sarah J. Maas's debut novel, Throne of Glass.
Before we dive in, don't forget Spilt. Spoilers, perspective and interpretation, language, and themes.
If you would like more information, please go back and listen to the start of part 1 of this week's episode.
While Chaol and Celaena walk around the palace together with Celaena in her very pink and purple is very feminine dress, by the way, they happen to stumble upon the Princess Nehemia of Eelway being escorted by Keltane and a random councilman. And let's just say there are a lot of power dynamics going on right now.
I am so fascinated with Nehemia and the way that Celaena looks at Nehemia and just their interaction, because it doesn't make sense to me, especially after everything we've been talking about. Quote, "She was stunning, long and lean, each of her features perfectly formed and smooth. Her loose white dress contrasted with her creamy brown skin, and a 3-plated gold torque covered much of her chest and neck. Bracelets of ivory and gold glimmered around her wrist, and her feet were sandaled beneath matching anklets. A thin circlet comprising dangling gold and jewels crowned her head. She had 2 male guards with her, armed to the teeth, with an assortment of curved Eelway daggers and swords. The Eelway girl was a princess." We are now introduced to our first person of color character in Throne of Glass. Main character, the eye eater guy who was described as having tan skin. Anyway, so our first POC character. And she is wearing a gold torque, gold bracelets, gold anklets, and it shows wealth, but it also shows that she is chained. She is wearing a collar. She is wearing manacles. She is a prisoner just as much as Celaena is. And we're going to see how much of a prisoner she really is. Immediately, why does Celaena not view her as a threat the way that she did with Keltane? This is a fellow princess. In theory, this would be the most threatening woman to her, right? The most direct power of like someone else who's in the same line of power as her type of thing, if that makes sense. And that's because there is power in title and reputation. And remember that Celaena is upset that she is not known as the famed assassin. So she respects title. She respects the power. Quote, "She had often heard the Elway slaves in Endovier boast of Nehemia's beauty and bravery. Nehemia, the light of Eelway, who would save them from their plight. Nehemia, who might someday pose a threat to the king of Ardalan's rule and over her home country when she ascended to the throne." So Celaena not only views Nehemia as an equal, but I think she views her as someone that she can aspire to rather than a threat. If anything, I feel like Celaena is not threatened, but rather might be put off because Nehemia is the princess who is fighting for her people when Celaena is not.
If anything, it's more cause for Celaena to have respect for Nehemia because she is doing what Celaena is not. I mean, it could be a source of jealousy, it could be a source of anger or shame, but I think what Celaena is choosing is respect. And I think it is because of her experience in Endovier. She felt the respect the people had for Nehemia, and she now vicariously has that same respect. That deep respect is also reflected in the fact that Celaena curtsies as low as she possibly can and chooses to speak to Nehemia in the Eelway language, which no one else bothers to do or is capable of doing.
Yeah, and immediately we see that Nehemia is classified as quote unquote other here. And that's a concept that we see often in literature. And other is other. I know that's like, groundbreaking description there, but a lot of times it's people of color, a lot of times it's women. It's just anything that is not white men, essentially. And we see that she is a foreign person of color, a woman in charge, everything that they do not like here, right? We've already established that this is a very white, violent, against women kingdom here, but she does not lose her power. And between her and Celaena, they're going to find power in language. So even though she's being kind of paraded around in this dress that's not hers and these chains and these, everything, there is power in language. And when Kaltain corrects her on the use of talking with the weather versus talking about the weather, it's viewed as a slight. It's viewed as something as in the moment, it's meant to be like, wow, she is being so disrespectful. And Celaena is even like, you shut your face up right there. But as someone who is trying to improve their Spanish, I need critiquing constantly. So, did she ask for critiquing? No, she did not. I don't know. I feel so bad for Kaltain. Anyway, the power of language in the representation of what other is so important here because both Celaena and Nehemia are other, except no one knows that Celaena is other. No one knows that, but she identifies with it. Nehemia is everything that Celaena can't be as a princess, like we were saying. She asks, quote, "What do you make of the castle?" And then Nehemia says, "It's the most foolish thing I've ever seen." She sees how ostentatious the castle is, how it's peacocking. And this is a princess that Celaena can just like say it. Like she gets to have what she says has value. She is another foreign entity, a royal foreign entity who can say this palace is stupid because she has one versus Celaena, just an assassin saying this palace is stupid does not have the same effect.
I think that's a good point.
Thank you.
So I do have to say that I have to give credit to Celaena in this scene. She could treat Nehemia the way she treats Kaltain if she wanted to. I think it goes back to what I was saying about Celaena, who worked side by side with other Eelway slaves, was able to develop respect for Nehemia because of rumors. And that is also questionable, right? Her respect is based off of rumors. Nevertheless, because the Eelway slaves respected their princess, therefore Celaena does as well. Furthermore, if the rumors are true, if Nehemia is a rebel, is a warrior, that means, like Jac was saying, she's not a petty courtier. She is physically powerful, and that's what Celaena respects. Now, whether or not that's the right reason to respect Nehemia, ultimately, Celaena treats her well, unlike everybody else. Nehemia is treated like a farm animal who is quote unquote herded about. And it's not even herded about by the prince. It's not herded about by anybody important. It's just some random female courtier and a random councilman. Now, and I don't say that to be mean to Kaltain. It's just...
No, you're right. You're right.
It's the truth.
Say the truth. Call it what it is.
We learned from Kaltain's perspective some other time that Kaltain's she's not from one of the most noble families. She's from like a lower noble family. So that's even more disrespectful to Nehemia, ultimately. It shows what Adarlan thinks of Eelway, its people, and its royalty, that they are not deserving of respect, and they are treated like farm animals. Now, Kaltain correcting Nehemia about her use of the language and telling her the correct preposition or whatever it is that she should use, yes, is about Kaltain trying to regain some control because Nehemia and Selena are speaking in a different language that she doesn't understand. I get it. Nehemia likewise calls Kaltain this one. Not a human, not this girl, just this one. Like nondescript, no species associated with it. I think Nehemia is disrespectful to Kaltain not because Kaltain really did anything wrong, but because it's the only way Nehemia can gain control of the situation when she's a prisoner in a country where she barely can speak the language. However, I do think that Nehemia's disrespect towards Kaltain makes Selena think Nehemia is therefore an ally in hatred against Kaltain, which I don't like.
I hate it. They're both mean girls right now.
They are both mean girls. So I just pointed out because there's a lot of dynamics going on here, even though it's like a 2 or 3 page encounter. And not all of it is positive. Some of it is, some of it isn't.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to make Kaltain shit, then make her more racist. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to be like, Kaltain sucks, this is a great opportunity. And some people might say, yes, this is racism. You know, we're seeing some of it here.
Yeah.
As someone who's seen it, experienced it in different ways, and I'm sure the same thing is with you, Amy. For new listeners, Amy's half Chinese, I'm half Chilean. There's been a lot of experience with it. So like maybe some people might look at this and say, well, Kaltain is being super racist.
Yeah, I mean, could you describe her actions as a microaggression? Sure, you could.
Yeah.
At the same time, these are a bunch of 18-year-olds.
Why must you remind me every time? Because you're right. But like, they're in their 20s, late 20s. Yeah, you're right. They're 18. They're kids.
Yeah, I mean, they're children. This is how high schoolers act.
I hate it.
It's to be expected. Not that it's okay.
No, but it is to be expected.
Surprising.
It is in behavior of the youth. And thank God I'm not in high school.
Yeah, seriously.
So what makes Nehemia different? Quote, Nehemia chewed on the words and looked at Selena, brows high, as if she'd expected a translation by now. A smile tugged on the corners of Selena's lips. No wonder the councilman was sweating so profusely. Nehemia was a force to be reckoned with. Selena translated Kale's question with ease. Selena isn't threatened by her. Selena's not put off with the attitude of, well, why aren't you doing this for me? Because that's what it is. There's an entitlement. Nehemia, she's entitled. She has this attitude. It doesn't matter that she's a princess fighting for her people. That is an entitled ass moment to say, well, why aren't you just doing this for me? But why do we like Nehemia more than we like other people? Because I don't feel like Nehemia is giving off positive vibes at this personal moment. And why do we like these women? Like we were saying, they are mean girls. Quote, get rid of her, she said flatly to Selena, then waved a hand towards Kaltain. I don't care for her temperament. You're dismissed, Selena said to Kaltain, flashing a bright smile. The princess tires of your company. Nehemia is equally rude like Selena, and it's an sense of an entitlement that comes with royalty. They are two princesses who are acting like princesses. And they get to have a common enemy, even though the common... Okay, let me rant. Where's my mic? Okay.
I need popcorn.
The common enemy here is a fucking man. Sorry, I try not to curse. The common enemy is the fucking king. It is a man. It is a man who has positioned all of these women against each other. Even though Dorian, who is another man, brought in Selena, is positioning these women, these little pawns, and these women are going after each other when the main one to get is king. All right, I'm not happy. But it's good. You know what I mean? I'm happy because I'm mad.
This is a product of a young author.
Yeah.
Right? I think if SJM of today wrote these 3 characters and how they interact would be very different.
Yeah.
I do think it is also easier for us as readers to feel empathetic towards Nehemia because she
Mm-hmm.
fits a trope. She
Mm-hmm.
is a woman of color who is captive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
It
that's
is.
sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, I
No,
was
go
just saying
ahead.
that's the reason why I don't hate her is like, well, you're a woman of color who's captive. Like that's not
Yeah.
a good feeling. That sucks.
And it's easier for us to identify not with Nehemia, but empathy for Nehemia
Mm-hmm.
over anybody else.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that's also true for Selena.
Yeah.
She isn't capable of seeing Keltane for who she really is, but
Mm-hmm.
Selena is capable of seeing Nehemia for who she really is.
Yes.
And that's why she does not struggle with the way Nehemia acts or treats her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good call. Good call. Calm me down. Take me off the edge.
Also, Nehemia is a bully just like Selena.
You know, such a bully. Such a fucking bully. I hope you all feel
That's
like shit later, which they will.
not the listener, but the characters.
Yeah, not you guys. You guys are perfect. You're amazing. Keep listening, sweet baby angels.
During this exchange, just a friendly reminder, Kale is with Selena at this moment, and Kale interferes between Nehemia and Selena just like Keltane did. Quote, "Your Highness," Kale said, stepping forward, a subtle movement to keep himself between Nehemia and Selena. Now, we are in Selena's point of view, and we can tell from this description that Kale is being viewed as a threat that is coming between Nehemia and Selena. Just like Keltane is a threat to Nehemia, Kale is a threat to Nehemia and Selena. And to me, that's just through the description of the movement. I think that that's implied for a reason, just because of how we know the story is going to turn out or how it's going to continue to progress between these three characters. And it signals for us that, yes, Selena is seeing Nehemia for what she is, which is a kindred spirit, a princess trapped in a glass castle. I think this is reinforced when Selena shakes hands with Nehemia and observes, quote, "Her fingers were surprisingly calloused in all the spots where the hilt of a sword or a dagger might rest." Now, if she were a true princess, a princess would have soft hands free of signs from labor. That is what it means to be noble and royal, at least in our Western perspective of what it means to be royal. Instead, what Selena is observing is signs of a warrior, and she recognizes that the warrior in Nehemia because Selena herself is a warrior as well. This is just reinforcing this idea that they're kindred spirits, that no matter how Nehemia might treat Selena or how entitled Nehemia might be, ultimately at the end of the day, they are the same.
We're, still going into this Kale being there and is he a threat or is he an ally? Let's look at this quote. "Though his features were a mask of protocol, she could have sworn she glimpsed a glimmer of amusement in his eyes. Selena wanted to hug him." This amusement is off of Keltane's expense. And once again, Selena is finding allies and men who see Keltane as a common enemy. Hashtag leave Keltane alone. I don't know.
Yeah. You can't see me shake my head, but I'm shaking my head.
Yeah. That silence there is Amy's disapproval.
That's right. Now, as it should, seeing Nehemia brings up memories of Endovier for Selena, especially when Selena is asked whether she keeps slaves. Selena responds, quote, "I don't believe in keeping slaves." Something twisted in her gut at the thought of all those slaves she'd left behind in Endovier, all those people doomed to suffer until they died. Just because she'd left Endovier didn't mean Endovier had ceased to be. This is absolutely correct. And Endovier will stay with Selena throughout the series. But what's problematic to me about this, and maybe this is the only way to incorporate it into the book, but it is often that Endovier only comes up, and the slaves in Endovier only come up when Selena is visually reminded of someone who looks like a slave from Endovier.
Yep.
In all other instances, the Eelway slaves are out of sight, out of mind for Selena.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, when it comes to writing, I recognize that there's only so much you can fit on a page. But if I were writing Selena and she was really to struggle with this idea that she's left behind a bunch of people unfairly enslaved in Endovier, she would wrestle with that more in moments that are just plain moments, in moments where there aren't people like Nehemia in front of her. Jac is raising her hand.
I have a comment. Thank you
Yes.
for picking me. To your point, because I freaking agree to the umpteenth degree. Here is a moment where you could have added that because it's hard when you have only so many so many words in a book. You could have had her still not sleeping in a bed. You could have had her just say she looked at her bed guiltily. She looked at her bed. You don't have to do much to, drill in a point. It can be subtle. And the fact that we called out saying, oh, look, she's in the bed, she's healing and stuff. I actually thought that was and I still think it's a wasted moment of showing that she does have this struggle with the slaves in Endovier and that they aren't just a convenient, oh my God, someone looks like they might be a slave from Endovier who, as we've established here, is a person of color. So now I feel bad. I'm one of you. That's not how that works.
Yeah. And, as the text is written right now, it comes across to me just in this book, in this moment in this book. It comes across to me that Celaena is happy to pretend Endovier didn't happen if she can avoid thinking about it. Yeah. She enjoys the finer things. She's adapting to comfort. And she only thinks to lament the people she left behind when she is forced to acknowledge that part of her journey, their existence, their presence.
And, there's two ways of looking at it. You can look at it as like, this is survivor's guilt, and she struggles with survivor's guilt. She doesn't know how to process and cope with it. I truly do believe that this is, like you said, a sign of a young author who doesn't know how to incorporate it in more subtle but consistent ways.
Yeah, I agree.
And we see that better in books like Wings and Ruin and in books like Crescent City. So I do want to point out that, this is one of those moments where SJM does much better with PTSD and reminding us of that in future different books.
Right. I mean, this is her first book, so it makes sense. Yeah. She does it better in her later series.
At one point, Nehemia says, quote, "You don't need to bother calling me that." The princess toyed with one of her gold bracelets around her wrists. And that being Your Majesty, Your Highness. And it's a contrast of not wanting to be called Your Highness. However, she is acting like one. It's, oh, you don't need to call me Your Highness, but translate for me.
I think it's a comment about how she doesn't have power here.
Okay.
There's no power in her title.
Yeah. Oh, I like that one much more. Let's do that. And so at this point now, they're talking about Dorian, and Nehemia says about him, quote, "That pretty boy, he grinned at me far too much, and you should only see how he winked at the other woman in the court. I want a husband to warm my bed, and my bed alone." She glanced sidelong at the assassin, giving her another head-to-toe examination. I mean, there's you're pitting women against each other over a stupid boy. Granted, supposedly a really hot stupid boy, but stupid nonetheless.
Who is a bit of a player. And now Celaena is the one who is viewed as a threat, right? Celaena's been the one who's looked at other women, kind of judged other women for being interested in Dorian. And that's now been put on her, even though she's not necessarily interested in him. What is the difference between this dynamic that we're getting between Nehemia towards Celaena versus Celaena towards Kaltain? Kaltain had an interest in Dorian, and in theory, Celaena doesn't care. And yet, suddenly, she does care. What do you mean you might like Dorian? You're flirting with the prince. Oh, we're going to have a threesome with him and Kale. That was literally implied. Versus now, it's you have Nehemia who's just saying, unless you like him, essentially, with her eyes. And Celaena doesn't give any of the fucks. I guess I interpreted it as we learn that Celaena is very attracted to Dorian. And it's easier to hate a woman if she likes the guy you like versus attracted to the guy you're attracted to. And it's easier to like a woman who has no interest in the guy that you're interested in. And that's the female experience.
It is. God, what would have happened if we ever liked the same guy? Would have been rare. Would have been rare.
Very rare.
Amy's engaged to a woman. Let's just put that.
We both like Raven, you.
We did. Thank God he's not a real person.
Yeah. There would have been bloodshed.
God, I mean, talk about a character that would have zero interest in either of us, personality-wise.
So true.
I say that to both of us, not just...
I understand. Nehemiah tells Selena about how books were burned in Eelway, just like they were in Terrasen. Quote, something cold and bitter glittered in Nehemiah's eyes. Now, most of the books we receive are from Aderlin, books in a language I can barely understand. That's also what I must learn while I'm here. If knowledge is power, and the conquering nation, Aderlin, systematically destroys access to knowledge and replaces it with their version, the native people, the Eelway, become powerless. We've seen this in our own history.
Mm-hmm.
I personally witnessed it in the country I grew up in, and we see it in a lot of SJM's writings, including Crescent City. Without saying Aderlin is bad, we know Aderlin is bad.
Yeah.
We cannot trust a ruler, the king, who allows this kind of thing to happen, that conquers a nation and replaces its knowledge with his own, essentially. The reason for this conversation to exist is because it helps us as readers better understand Selena's conflict and what it really means for her to become the king's champion. That her home was destroyed just like Nehemiah's, and she is subjecting herself to a situation where she's essentially a slave to this king.
It's also like one of my favorite right now we're looking at it through the feminist lens and the Marxist lens, but one of my other favorite lenses that I learned in college was post-colonial lens. I really enjoyed looking at things through a post-colonial lens. It initially started with reading literature that came out of countries after British and other colonizers had left. And those are very interesting books to read. But then the post-colonial lens has grown to this any kind of lens of viewing things of once the power has taken over, that's the colonial lens. And then post-colonial is once the power has left. So it's just, I feel like that's if we were to dabble in other lenses, this would be a great colonial / eventually post-colonial lens.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. It's not often, I think, that we get to enjoy the post-colonialism in a fantasy setting.
Yeah.
Especially in this series. However, I also think, yes, it could have very interesting themes.
Absolutely. Now we're going to talk about some clothes. Nehemiah says, quote, and I hate these shoes and this miserable dress. I don't care if it's Eelway silk and I'm supposed to be representing my kingdom. The material's been itching me ever since I put it on. She stared at Selena's elaborate gown. How can you stand wearing that enormous thing? Selena picked at the skirts of her dress. It breaks my ribs, to be honest. It's more proof of the metaphorical chains that we were talking about and the fact that Nehemiah hates it here. I think that it speaks volumes that this is a dress that Selena earlier talked about loving, feeling refreshed to wear this dress. She's talked about loving these pretty things. And rather than defending herself or defending this dress of saying, I actually really like it, she leans into what Nehemiah is saying and goes, well, it breaks my ribs too. And that could be true. But earlier in this chapter, she was just, oh my God, my dress is awesome.
Yeah, it's an interesting position I believe this is what makes Selena multifaceted. I mean, someone might argue poorly written. I'm going to argue multifaceted. And that's not a
That's
slight.
such a good point. Yeah, no, but that's a good point. That's a good freaking point. People a lot of times will argue this is a shitty character and it's like actually they're multifaceted, but like continue.
Yeah, I mean, just like Selena, in my view, chose to wear a dress after training because yesterday Kale critiqued her for not being more ladylike after training. Selena could also be like, yeah, it was more comfortable to wear training clothing and lean into what Nehemiah's viewpoint is. I feel like Selena is at an age where it's easier to adapt yourself to what people want you to be instead of being who you truly are. Because at the end of the day, Selena is hiding who she truly is. Her only goal is to disguise herself so that she can't be found. And so choosing to act or agree with everyone around her is a method of disguise.
A method of survival. I mean,
Yeah.
not only is this very common for when you're young and you're still trying to figure out who you are, so you kind of adapt and you're a chameleon to everyone around you. Eventually, in theory, you become who you are and you're more comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
That is all true, and that is a product of youth. To your point, it is a product of survival. It is a product of her having to say, no one can know what I am. No one can know that she is not just the princess, that she is Fae, right? Do we know that by book 3? That she is a Fae
We do know that
princess.
book. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
No one can know that she is, if Nehemia is other, Selena is other too. You know, she's not even human. She's not even part of like this race with everyone else here. So she has to adapt to every single person. She has to be an assassin. She's gonna be the best freaking assassin. She has to be a champion. She's gonna be a champion. She has to be pretty. I'm gonna be pretty. You don't like this dress? I don't like this dress either.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm. And that's how we save books. That's well, it's just like, you know, people dismiss things very quickly. And I think there's layers to it.
I think so too.
Now, speaking of layers, this is one of those layers that is very much worth talking about. And we'll mention a little bit in the breadcrumbs, but let's look at this quote. She never had many friends. The ones that she had often disappointed her. Sometimes devastating consequences. She'd learned that summer with the silent assassins of the Red Desert. After that, she'd sworn never to trust girls again, especially girls with agendas and power of their own, girls who would do anything to get what they wanted. But as the door closed behind the ivory train of the Eelway princess, Selena wondered if she'd been wrong. Like I said, we'll get into that into the breadcrumb section, but the sentiment is important for us to understand right now. And it's a messy sentiment, but I also understand that this might be something that a lot of women can connect to, a lot of young women can connect to. You know, the amount of times I've heard, I don't really like girls, they're just full of drama. And that's always like my red flag where I'm like, you said that that was used to be you back in the day. That was always like my red flag of like, if someone is like, I don't like girls, they're drama. I'm like, what? No, however, you know, look at you, you're perfect. You're stuck with me. And I think that it's hard because you've had, you know, sometimes people have one bad female relationship and therefore they feel like they can't trust women in general, even though that concept doesn't always necessarily extend to men. Just because they can't trust a man doesn't mean that people don't try to find love again. You know, some do, some don't. I'm making very general statements here. I'm happy that we're getting at the start of this book this concept of female friendship. It's a concept that SJM, I personally think, struggles in her writing. I don't think that the concept and depiction of female friendship is the most natural to her. I think it's something that she usually has to work towards. And even with this dynamic, I'm happy that we're getting it early on. I need it to prove true to me.
Yeah, I agree. And I remember when I was reading this series that I did feel like she did female friendship more. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but she tried hard, and I felt like she did a decent job later on in the series.
And that's the point, later on. It's the same thing with Akatar. She does it well later on when you get Nesta and co. And, you know, you and I have argued, we've only analyzed the first 2 books of Crescent City, but we've argued that she actually, even though we start with Danica, doesn't really do a great job of depicting female friendships. So this is something that she works on and gets to, but struggles a little bit in the beginning. So I'll definitely be looking more into this relationship as the book continues.
We then transition into Cale's point of view, and this is the first time we're seeing the world through his eyes. Now, it starts out with a good old-fashioned food is power moment. Quote, her mouth was full of food. Would she never stop eating? She ate more than anyone he knew, including his guards. She had multiple helpings of every course at each meal. First off, Cale should not be judging a woman for their eating habits, especially Selena's. She was malnourished for a year.
I know. And she works out a lot.
Yeah, seriously. Additionally, his remark on Selena's eating habits demonstrates for us as readers what we really should see in Selena, which is inner strength. It's a strength that's she's harnessing, that she's working on, but we just haven't been able to see yet. We also have to remember it's an improvement from when she could hardly eat after first leaving Endovier, symbolizing she's growing, her strength is growing through her training, and hopefully it's a good sign for the future.
I want to look into this with the feminist lens. Quote, Kale Westfald watched the assassin eat lunch, her eyes darting from one plate to the next. She had immediately stripped from her gown upon entering her rooms and now sat in a rose and jade dressing robe that suited her well. So this is the very first sentence in the Kale point of view, and it's the
Mm-hmm.
first time we get that Kale point of view, and it's the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that he notices is it's a good robe on her. It looks good
Yeah.
on her.
Yeah.
And you're starting to get this idea that food and sex are a little bit related. Now, even though he says something like, she eats more than my soldiers, she also eats sausages.
Yeah.
So it's a sexy food. It's it's not, what do they call it?
It's phallic.
Sexy. It's a phallic food. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know if it's sexy, but it's, we've already established this. I think chocolate croissants are the sexiest of foods,
Mm.
but it's, like a sausage, like there's going to be a lot of connection there. Now into this other quote. And what's wrong with headstrong girls, she pressed, other than the fact that they're not wooden-headed ninnies who can only open their mouths to give orders and gossip. I just prefer a certain type of woman. Thankfully, it was the right thing to say because she batted her eyelashes. And what type of woman is that? Not an arrogant assassin. She's trying to get into Kale's graces. She just wants him to pick her to
Mm-hmm.
find that something to find her attractive, right? And she
Yeah.
did the whole court gossip ninny thing earlier, mind you. And there's an unspoken difference between girls and women in what Kale is saying. So while Nehemia and Selena are young women, and they're certainly not girls, how do we feel about Kale's definition here?
Yeah, no, I think for me it was more about to him there are girls and women, and quite frankly I think he classifies Selena as a girl right now. She is a headstrong girl.
Yeah, and I agree because Selena is still removing herself and seeing herself as superior from the quote unquote wooden-headed ninnies who only open their mouth to give orders and gossip. She only sees herself as that and better than them.
Yeah,
What makes you better than them?
right.
What was different than Nehemia earlier telling her, giving her orders, them talking
Mhm.
about court, hating their
Mhm.
dresses and stuff, and not liking Keltane? There's not much of a difference. And I
Yeah.
think Kale is right in that there is a difference between girls and women. And right now, Selena's acting like a little, a petty girl.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't know that I like the messaging coming from Kale.
No, I agree. No, a man shouldn't be telling me that.
You don't get to have a differentiation between girls and women. I get to have a differentiation
Yeah,
between girls and
Kale.
women.
No, I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
That was my
Agreed.
point. That
That's
was
a
my
good
point.
one. All right, now for this next quote. He sometimes felt that she looked at him in a way a cat regards a mouse. He wondered how long it would take for her to pounce. She shrugged and took a bite from an apple. There was something girlish about her, too. Oh, he couldn't understand her contradictions. Whenever I see apple and I see kind of sex, I always get Adam and Eve concepts,
Yeah.
she taking a bite of an apple. There's this temptress. There's this, she's the snake. Come hither in my garden type of thing.
Mhm.
Where did I
Mhm.
say it like that?
I
Anyway.
don't know.
Uh, Kale is obviously, though, struggling to understand the many facets that is Selena, and he sees power in her, but also views her very much girlish, and he doesn't like that girlishness there. And he's confusing femininity as weakness. And I think that's that's a very important thing where he struggles with it. He definitely views femininity as weakness, but he also likes it on her too.
Yeah.
Very interesting. But I guess that also kind of makes sense with men in general too, actually. Like a lot of, not all guys, but some of the shit guys are like, "Oh, women suck. I don't like, femininity. I'm not going to act like a woman. Like femininity sucks, but also you must act like it, but then you hate it anyway."
I think the contradiction is really in men, in Kale, because they don't like headstrong women who think for themselves, but
Hmm.
they don't like girls who gossip, but
Yeah.
they like girls and women who depend on them and who are cute and
And
ultra feminine. It's
yeah.
like men are the problem.
I saw something on TikTok that was really interesting, and I think about it a lot, is find a man who likes women, or they like you. Just because a man will be with a woman, married to a woman, doesn't mean he likes them. And how oftentimes men can be with someone that they claim to love, but just not like them.
Yeah.
And, all these things of what is girlishness, what is feminine, quote unquote, femininity. It's an interesting concept. So that's why I go in hard with my flowers. And I just want to say, like my flowers, bitch. And then you get the multifaceted side of me. Amy is squinching her head so much. It's a struggle. It's a struggle. Feminine side contradiction. That's all we're saying for this.
Yeah. I think what it is for Kale and for the general enigma that is men, because remember, I'm with a woman. It's either I enjoy this person's femininity because I can control it, or I enjoy this person's femininity because, period. Because I just do.
And then you also have femininity versus girlishness, like youthfulness and stuff. Because I've been told I have a very girlish face, and just like kind of like a youthful girlish face. And the amount of times I've had guys, and like we're being cutesy with each other, they're just like, "Oh, you're just like a little girl. You're just like a little baby." And I get you're being cutesy, but I'm also, you're infantilizing me. And what does that mean when I get older? And is my beauty not going to still be beauty when I'm 50, 60? Because I've seen some 50, 60-year-olds. They're hot as fuck. Looking at you, mom.
It's just like, are you saying you fuck a baby? Like,
oh my God. Yeah. Do you know he used to do that all the time? I'll give you one guess out of all my exes. Yeah. All the freaking time. You're just like a baby. And it's like, but what? And I remember one time I was like, will you still like me when I'm older? Because you're really into my little girlish face here.
Yep.
We're not together anymore.
Yep.
And he's with someone who's younger than me.
Yep.
Issues.
Yeah. Moving away from that topic. We end this scene with an understanding that Kale does not understand, nor does he trust Selena. Quote, "Despite her arrogance, she was clever and relatively kind and somewhat charming. But where was that writhing darkness? Why didn't it show itself so he could just throw her into the dungeon and call off this ridiculous competition? There was something great and deadly concealed within her, and he didn't like it. He'd be ready. When the time came, he'd be waiting. He just wondered which of them would survive." Now, I understand why it is hard for some people to like Kale. Let me just state, I do ultimately like Kale. I like his journey. But in this moment, he does not trust our protagonist because she keeps a lot of secrets, because she's an assassin, because she's killed a lot of people. Okay. That was her job. Just like his job is to kill people, if it comes to that.
Yeah.
Now, we see, as the readers, we see the goodness in Selena regardless. We also see the bad, but we see the goodness. And despite Kale being capable of the same, he will always fall on the side of distrust, which I think, as readers, I'm going to suggest that we don't. We fall on the side of, we're just going to trust Selena. Whereas Kale is always like, I must distrust. It's bad. Shame on me for trusting her. Kale's doubted Selena from the beginning, and he will continue prioritizing his mistrust of her, his lack of understanding of her. And I think ultimately that is why readers may not like him. I'm also going to argue something that just popped into my head. We've been talking a lot about how Selena is naive. How much of the darkness in Selena is created because of Kale's actions? Because Kale is the one to put it there. Not willingly, not with that intention, but he's looking for something that we don't know to exist, and so he makes it exist. On the flip side, it is his job to be suspicious. It is his job to see threats and take care of them. He's captain of the guard. His sworn duties to protect the kingdom, the king, the prince. Unfortunately, Cale is very black and white in his thinking. And to me, that is what makes his character journey very interesting, is that we take this very, very black and white character who has very, very strict views of the world, who makes mistakes and wrong assumptions and has to come to peace with that and make better decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Sam just finished the whole series. She read it in like a week and a half.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And she was like, I have a lot of thoughts and I don't like Cale. I don't know. We'll see.
And again, I remember when I first listened to the series, I was like, I understand why people don't like Cale, but I don't agree. I think he's misunderstood.
I can't wait to talk about it. Yeah.
I think he's misguided.
Yeah.
That does not inherently make him a bad character.
Agreed. We'll be right back.
This episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy is brought to you by Wild Grain. Wild Grain is the first Bake from Frozen subscription box for artisanal breads, pastries, and pastas.
Wild Grain's boxes are fully customizable to your tastes and dietary restrictions. In addition to their classic variety box, they recently launched a new gluten-free box and plant-based box that is 100% vegan. Best of all, they take the hassle out of baking since all items bake from frozen in 25 minutes or less with no mess or cleanup.
Just this weekend, I baked their large sourdough loaf, and let me tell you how crunchy, crispy that crust was, but the interior was super soft and chewy. I ate that entire loaf within 36 hours by myself.
And that's okay because I ate their baguette by myself. They also have fresh pasta, which, oh my God, I feel fancy. This is much better than the grocery store stuff. And the fact that we get to bake bread.
Wild Grain gives you that fresh bakery feel without having to go out to the bakery, which I love.
Are you ready to bring all your favorite carbs right to your doorstep? Be sure to check out Wild Grain so you can begin building your own box of artisanal breads, pasta, and pastries.
For a limited time, Wild Grain is offering our listeners $30 off the first box, plus free croissants in every box when you go to wildgrain.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to start your subscription.
You heard her. Free croissants in every box and $30 off your first box when you go to wildgrain.com/booktalk.
That's wildgrain.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, or you can use promo code BOOKTALK at checkout. My new focus in life and in my wardrobe is quiet luxury. The things that are nice, that make me feel good, but I know are worth the money that I spent on it without being boisterous.
I've definitely noticed that I've been spending more time on elevating what I'm purchasing, and some of my favorite go-to items have been from Quince. That's because they offer a range of high-quality items, but with prices that are within reach and very reasonable.
They have 100% Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50 and washable silk tops and dresses that I love to wear to work.
Quince items are usually priced between 50 to 80% less than other similar brands.
They work with top factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes and cut out the middleman in the process.
One of my all-time favorite cardigans is actually from Quince, and every time I wear it, I always get compliments of how cozy and how soft it is.
My favorite Quince item is this button-up washable silk blouse that I wear to work, and what I love about it is it's so versatile. I can pair it with a cardigan, I can wear it on its own, I can wear it with a blazer, and it always makes me feel good about myself.
Give yourself the luxury gift you deserve with Quince. Go to quince.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK. As most of our listeners know, I'm getting married, and let me tell you, getting married is expensive.
Let me tell you, being a guest to your wedding is expensive, and that's where Acorns come in.
Acorns is a financial wellness app that makes it easy to start saving and investing for your future, and in my case, my wedding.
You don't need to be an expert. Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that matches you to your money goals.
You don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you get started with the spare money you've got right now, even if all you've got is spare change.
Money planning stresses me out quite a bit, and Acorns makes it so easy.
It only takes 5 minutes to create an account with Acorns and start investing. It gives you small, simple steps to get you and your money on track, which is sometimes just the hardest part.
I love it because no matter what age you are, it's always important to be able to take control of your money and your investments.
So sign up now and join the over 13 million all-time customers who've already saved and invested over $22 billion with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/booktalk, that's BOOKTALK, or download the Acorns app to get started. Paid client endorsement compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 1 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
We are finally into chapter 14, and we get a Rocky-style training sequence at the start of the chapter. The training sequence is important as we prepare for the first trial. We have to believe Selena's physical progress from running and throwing up and barely being able to finish a race to being able to even complete the first trial, not to even speak of all the trials to come. The training sequence is also an opportunity for us to better understand Cale, especially after having had his point of view. We know that he's neither willing to praise Selena for her goodness nor comment on her weakness. It comes across to me that he almost doesn't want to engage with her simply because he wants to avoid her. But also, at the same time, we also understand he's unable to understand her. What Cale has come to understand about Selena is that she's not good with silence. She has to fill that silence because she's arrogant. And I think Cale is used to playing the waiting game. He is willing to stay silent and just keep watch to see what she does. And we know that he's more strategically minded than Selena is. And that's what's happening here in my mind.
Who Selena hates will speak more to me than the people that she likes. So let's look at Cain. Quote, Cain, how she loathed him. Burlo practically worshipped the man, and even the other champions nodded their respect when he passed by. No one bothered to comment on how perfect her form was. Was this how the other assassins in the Assassin's Keep had felt all those years that she kept hogging Arobin Hamel's attention? It's almost like self-reflection, but not really.
Yeah.
It's such a, she's mad that he's getting attention. She's mad that the other people respect him and not her. I mean, they're not even necessarily going out of their way to disrespect her. They're just respecting him.
Right.
They're not noticing. Why aren't they noticing my perfect form? And it's a reminder of what her life used to be. She used to be respected. She used to be valued. And Cain is able to live in a way and be respected in a way that she cannot.
That really irks her. She doesn't like it.
Yep.
During training, Knox Owen introduces himself, even though Selena has already taken note of him and has also noted he is handsome. Quote, his grip was solid, his hand calloused and scarred. He'd seen his fair share of action. This is the second time we've seen Selena judge someone in a positive light because of scars on their hands.
Mm-hmm.
She sees their value as symbols of strength and skill. Now, on one hand, it's not surprising because I'm going to assume she has a lot of scars, not just including the ones on her back. I think it's also important to note the fact that she
there's
respects
a comment
scars.
she makes. Oh, sorry. There's a comment that she makes later with Dorian saying, everyone has scars. Some people just have it more visible.
Yes. But I will say who she ends up with in the future also has this big scar. And I think that connection needs to be noted.
I mean, she has a scar in her hand. We're going to get the story about Arobin smashing her hand.
Yep. Also true. Peller comes up at this point. He's a young boy who informs them of Graves' murder. Quote, she'd spent half a day watching Peller, and while she only pretended to be mediocre, he truly could use the training. Assassin indeed. His voice hadn't even deepened yet. How did he wind up here? I bring this up because Selena's judging. He could also be faking. She doesn't know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's not, but
he survives.
He could be.
He survives this round.
He does survive. Now, on one hand, it does make sense that Selena's taking stock of her opponents, especially as the first trial draws nearer. That's what she should be doing. It's probably ingrained in her as an assassin, trying to ascertain, who's the threat, how to handle them. I'm just pointing out that she's judging.
Judgy Judgerson.
Mm-hmm.
There's a moment when Selena shows off, quote, it sparkled a shooting star of steel. She smiled grimly as it struck home. Behind her, Knox swore colorfully when his dagger hit the third ring on the target, and her smile broadened, despite the shredded corpse that lay somewhere in the castle. Such an interesting thing to throw in there. It's like, I'm happy, even though this other person who ate eyes is shredded somewhere. And it's like, what was that necessary? I think it's meant to show a level of ruthlessness in her. There's which like we get, she's really into her own ability of killing and her own upbringing as an assassin. And, she's just proud of herself, even if there's dead people in the castle. Vernon and Kane heckle her, quote, circus tricks ain't much use when you're the king's champion. She shifted her gaze to him, but kept position towards the target. You'd be better off on your back learning tricks useful to a woman. In fact, I can teach you some tonight if you like. He laughed and Kane joined with him. Why is it that insulting women always comes back to sex? It's either threatening of sex or shaming women for enjoying sex. Those are always the two ways that men love to insult women when it comes in general. Just they love it.
Mm-hmm.
Her, though, and Knox have a different dynamic. Quote, you've got impressive aim. For a girl, she challenged. No, he said, and threw another dagger. For anyone. Once Knox shows Selena that he views her and values her as an equal and not just a girl, she starts to put more time and effort into him, which I understand and I agree with. Respect people who see you as a human.
Yeah. I interpreted what he was saying as comfort. I think his intent was comfort. Like, ignore them. They're terrible towards women. I'm a good guy, I promise. I see what you're saying as Selena seeing, oh, Knox is finally giving me the validation I've been begging for.
It's both. I think
I think it's both.
Yeah. Like, he's kind of saying, hey, it's okay. Like, I see you as a human. And she's like, thank you, someone. See that I'm good.
Yeah. And this is where the concept of quid pro quo comes back in. He validated her. And so she's willing to help him get better at his dagger throwing. In my mind, from a writing perspective, this moment of teaching is important for balancing out the disgusting comments about women. From a power perspective, Selena is showing her power through teaching a man. It's her being powerful. I also choose to interpret this moment, though, despite her need for validation, despite her being very arrogant, there is a magnanimity. I can say the word in my head. I can't say it out loud. She's being magnanimous by teaching Knox how to throw better. She doesn't have to do that. He is competition. She doesn't have to do it just because he said nice things about her.
Yeah.
But there is something in her that feels obligated to do so.
And what's that obligation? Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
No, go ahead.
No. Finish your point. Because don't look at my point.
Okay, I'm not looking at your point. I think it's important that we see this moment happen, regardless of Selena's intention, because it makes us like her from a writing perspective.
Absolutely. And then as I was reading, I felt all that way. And then I was like, holy shit, it's because he's her subject.
Oh.
Quote, you're from Peranth, right? She asked, though she'd never been to Peranth, Terrason's second largest city. Yeah. So he's her subject.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons. He treats her with respect. He's, all the, like her own and goodness, but then he is her responsibility.
Yeah. I see it. I don't like it, but I see it.
Okay. You don't like it? Why don't you like it?
No. I mean, I think just the way I first interpreted your point, I understand like she's being the kind of ruler you would want. She is beholden to her people. She wants to take care of her people. At first I was like, she just wanted to find someone who would like be her slave. But no, it's her when you said subject, my immediate thought was about power.
Oh yeah,
right?
no. He's literally her subject. He's
No, you're
literally
right.
her
You're right.
responsibility.
Yep.
And you hate it. I'm sorry.
No. I hated it because my first
Oh,
interpretation was about
of that one.
power.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, now you like it.
Yeah. So remember how earlier I was talking about the fact that Selena inaccurately associates Cain and Kale together? Or
Yeah.
accurately, whatever the case is. I think we
Yeah.
see it again here when she learns where Kale's family is from. Quote, it somehow made sense that Kale's family ruled Aniel. The citizens of Aniel were warriors from birth and had been guardians against the hordes of the wild men from the White Fang Mountains for generations. Who is from the White Fang Mountains? Cain. Subconsciously, I think Selena is making the connection, but at least this time, Cain is in opposition to Kale rather than the same.
Yeah. And, as she's thinking about this, quote, the thought of Kale going up against hundreds of them, against men built like Cain, made her a little sick. It's interesting because it's like, do we believe this development? Like she's this, her concern for Kale, she spent a lot of time with him, sure. But is that enough time for her to care? Or is this more thinking that Kale is soft and would probably be instantly slaughtered? I think that for me, this is her showing a little bit more, like we've been seeing her rile him up. And I think this is her kind of saying, well, maybe I do care. Maybe I would be a little scared for him.
Yeah.
When Selena is just chilling in her room, Kale comes in to talk to her. Quote, he'd really come to talk to her about a book when a champion's corpse had just been found that morning? Didn't she say earlier that she didn't care when she threw the throwing star and was like, I don't care if I'm smiling and there's another corpse. But now it's like, you want to speak to me when there's a corpse in the, I mean, granted, it's probably because she thinks it's his responsibility to look for it, but whatevs.
Yeah.
We're starting to see that connection of the mind. And this is the connection that's going to make him the real love interest over Dorian. And, it's what's going to ground the two of them. There's more to that.
What do you mean by connection of the mind?
Oh, he's coming to talk to her about books.
Oh, I see.
Like he literally comes over because think of it this way. Dorian sent her a note saying, I like this book. I think you'd like it. And they kind of communicate a little bit through notes. Kale came over and sat down to talk to her about it rather than this like little flirtatious note. And that's the connection of the mind that I'm
that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Selena is demonstrating another moment of quid pro quo. As I've said, a common exchange of information and vulnerability in SJM books. And the vulnerability is what we're starting to see come into play right now with Kale. Because Kale was willing to reveal information about his upbringing and how he abdicated his title, Selena returns the favor. Quote, when I was 12, Arobin Hamel decided I wasn't nearly as skilled at swordplay with my left hand, so he gave me a choice. Either he could break my right hand, or I could do it myself. That night, I put my hand against a doorframe and slammed the door shut on it. I split my hand wide open and broke 2 bones. It took months to heal, months during which I could only use my left hand. She gave him a vicious smile. I bet Brullo never did that to you. Selena's upbringing was abusive, and it's one she did not get to choose. And we're only going to get to see more of that abuse and her conflicting feelings about it. What I think is important from this discussion is that we see Selena as a child make decisions where she could maintain power over her fate. That is a hard choice to make as a child, to be willing to break your own hand. But she chose it because she could control the situation. Mm-hmm. That is so different from Kale, who's had control over his path. He gets to choose to abdicate his title, unlike Selena, who was forced out of hers. And it's in this way that Kale and Selena will never be equals. They will never have enough common ground to really stay together as love interests, because Kale has had it easy in a way that Selena never has. And so Kale's not capable of understanding what Selena has gone through.
No, that's why she ends up with someone who has the most tragic backstory.
Yep, absolutely. When Selena tells her story, it does come across as a little bit mocking of Kale, but I think that the viciousness we see from her is more about her finding difficulty being vulnerable and sharing something that was formative for her. Yeah, she offered up the information, but I think her vulnerability with Kale is almost against her will sometimes because she's just as defensive as she is vulnerable, right? She's defensive about it, making it seem like it's normal or acceptable while also telling this really abusive story. That's why, in my mind, Selena lies about being ready for the next day and the trial that's coming in order to avoid being any more vulnerable than she already has been.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it interesting, right? Like that there's a story of choice and the choice being taken away, the contradiction between the two, and the fact that, you can manipulate someone and give them the illusion of choice, which,
Yeah.
you can argue that's a larger theme in this series in general.
Yep.
Also, the final quote in this chapter: in the silence that followed in his wake, she contemplated his story and the paths that had made them so different but so similar. She sees the similarities, she sees the differences, and they're going, like we were talking, there's more differences than similarities, but right now she's going to look for those similarities because he's hot. So
So
girls
why
got to do
not?
what you got a girl to do. Chapter 15 starts and it is test day. And quote, though she never admitted, Selena didn't really know what to expect at their first test. And what I want to look there is the she would never admit it part, because of course she wouldn't. It's very true to her character and her ego. And I want to come back to those black and white floors when we first saw the challenge room. It was like black. Yeah, it was like black and white. Remember? Quote, but the sponsors atop the mezzanine looked over the black and white checkered floor were a like similar chess, they're pieces of a chess puzzle. Like they're playing chess with them. Their games. It was just, I liked it.
No, I think that's a great point. Because again, they're game, they're fouls, they're chess pieces, like they're pawns at the end.
That's the word.
Pawns.
Yeah.
Selena does come across as a little bit anxious in this setting in anticipation of the first test. Quote, she adjusted the thick leather belt slung low across her hips. It was the kind of belt intended to bear the weight of multiple weapons. Its lightness now only reminded her of what she'd lost and what she had to gain. The weapons belt and the fact that it's empty is a visual symbol of her lack of power. Whether that's over her situation or, weakness compared to what she's capable of is to be seen. I am curious to see how the weapons belt does reappear throughout the novel or the series. I genuinely don't remember. So I just wanted to mark it in case it comes up again.
Yeah. You can also look at this from different angles too. Like you obviously have the loss and weight of the weapons themselves, but you also have the consequences of the weapons that have the weight and then the loss of those consequences. So you have the weight and you have the weight and loss of her freedom. During the competition, quote, some competitors began murmuring, but it was all she could to keep from beaming. Unfortunately, Kane didn't bother to hide his triumphant grin. Why couldn't he have been the champion that was found dead? It says that unfortunately, Kane didn't bother to hide his triumphant grin. Like, that's what makes her mad. That's the thing that does it for her. Not that he knows how to shoot a bow and arrow. Not that he's kind of a jerk. It's the fact that he shows off his triumphant grin. Now for this other quote. Archery was one of the first skills Arabin had taught her, a staple of any assassin's training. Two of the assassins further proved it with easy, skilled shots, though they didn't hit the bullseye, and their shots got sloppier the farther the target. Whoever their master had been, they know what they were teaching. The relationship that she has with her own instructor is going to be really complex because you can tell there's a certain amount of pride that she takes from Arabin, and we clearly see how abusive he was to her, right? Like the whole slamming her hand thing, and then the fact that she's like taking pride, but he also taught her how to be a killer and survive, which is another form of abuse itself. So the thing that she's taking pride in is another form of abuse.
Yeah.
But Selena, who also sees the value in this knowledge that she's gained, even though she knows that it's horrible, right? Like, so she sees the pros, even though it's all cons.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something odd about this whole trials system that really brings to focus how bad all the circumstances are.
Yeah.
And how bad her circumstances have been. And it's all she can do to celebrate it. Otherwise, what else can she do? Be upset about it, regret it, feel guilty? No. So she has to celebrate it to cope. It's just the same as seeing swordplay as dancing. She has to find the good in order to justify the bad.
Yep.
So to Celaena's surprise, the first test is just an archery contest. Because she's later in line, she gets to observe how everyone else does. And to her chagrin, Kane does very well. Quote, all she could think about was Kane. Kane getting applauded by Parrington. Kane getting clapped on the back by Brillo. Kane getting all of that praise and attention, not because he was a mountain of muscle, but because he actually deserved it. So once again, Celaena's judgment of a person, he's just a mountain of muscle, he's not really anything, he doesn't really have skills, comes back to bite her in the ass because she's wrong.
I know.
We learn with time that Celaena, and just from her general attitude, that Celaena is accustomed to praise, acclaim, and notoriety. You don't get called Adderley's best assassin without wanting to be called Adderley's best assassin. To not have those things, the praise, the acclaim, the notoriety, it festers like a bad splinter in Celaena's mind. We can tell by her annoyance as first-time readers that she doesn't like others getting the positive attention. She's a jealous 18-year-old child. It is relatable. I understand feeling that way anytime I didn't do the best in class. I get it. Quote, but though she hadn't lost by any means, Celaena absolutely could not stand the feeling that she hadn't really won anything at all. At the end of the day, Celaena hates being in the middle. And something about this feels very ominous to me. And I genuinely don't remember if it is. But what we do see in later books is this idea that Celaena and or Aelin have to have it a certain way, have to be able to keep their secrets a certain way, have to win a certain way, because that's what makes them feel good.
Yep.
And we're already picking up on that character trait here.
Oh, yes. So early on. And Celaena's ego and her pride and her jealousy is just going to get the better of her. And, it's funny how much is being shoved in her face. Mm-hmm. Now, at one point, she says to herself, quote, I am Celaena Sardathian. I am going to win. I will not be afraid. And it just hurts my heart because it's like, oh my God, it's coming. It's coming.
Well, yeah. And you see how the mantra has been with her early on.
Yeah.
But we don't know the significance of it at this early stage.
I know. I'm going to cry. No, I'm not. I just have something in my eye. It's my contact. So back to the competition. Quote, the arrow hit the absolute center, obliterating the black dot. They stopped laughing. She needs to prove herself. She needs to prove, like, I'm the one who freaking does it. And, we're shitting her on for having an ego and pride. But, like, why shouldn't women have ego and pride? I think that's something that we typically are more harsh with on men or on women than we are with men.
Yeah.
Men get to be more egotistical. Men get to have more pride. But we shit on women. We're doing it now, but that's what but I'm here to do it. So I would like to point out that she did shoot the arrow. She got it. She should be proud 100%.
Yeah.
We just expect her to be smarter. You don't fall into your pride. And also, like, she's just not a very good winner too.
Yeah.
Like, she's not very good at handling being a winner. Oh, and we have like the fact that someone, like the loser dies, like they go away and we don't know what their fate is, but we do know that we get to be happy with her surviving. So that takes us at the end of this freaking 4
hour.
This just gets longer. Let's get into some breadcrumbs and broomsticks because, oh my God.
In chapter 11, when Celaena is sword fighting with Chaol, she describes herself as, quote, fast like a snake in the Red Desert. This reference is important to the storyline of Celaena in the Red Desert found in Assassin's Blade. And I think it's a lovely, lovely tie that keeps coming back up that we don't understand the significance of.
Yep. In chapter 13, quote, "You might fight well, but your manners are a disgrace." She waited for him to mention her earlier vomiting, but he didn't continue. "I can act and talk like a lady if I please," aka her royal background.
When Selena meets Nehemia and offers to guide her to where she needs to go, Selena asks, "Why are you in Rifthold, if I might ask?" She added, "Your Highness." This is a breadcrumb because Selena is unaccustomed to addressing royalty as royalty because she herself is royal. Therefore, they're equal.
Yep. Still in chapter 13, quote, "Before departing this morning, the king hadn't taken any of the guards he suggested he bring on the journey and refused to say where he was going or to accept his offer of accompaniment. He's just a Valg doing Valg things. Val's got a Valg."
And that's why he ignores Kale, because
Yeah,
Kale's a weak little human.
he is.
In chapter 14, Selena notices, quote, "A large ring of black iridescent stone glimmered on Kane's finger. Strange that he'd wear it to practice. Well, that's because it's got Valve control all over it. Or it's really the Valve controlling Kane, but you know what I mean."
Also in chapter 14, quote, "My parents are dead," she said. "They died when I was 8. So you," her heart thundered in her chest, "I was born in Terrasen. Then I became an assassin. Then I went to Endovier, and now I'm here. That's it." She obviously doesn't want him to know something, like, who her parents are, or how they died, or how she ended up in Aderlin, or who the hell she is.
And just to clarify, that was Kale and Selena talking
Yes.
about her past.
Yeah.
And last but not least, in chapter 15, when Nox and Selena are talking and he asks if she knows what the test is, Selena thinks, quote, "Even if she knew what was behind the curtain, she certainly wouldn't help him, Nox Owen," which is ironic because that's all she does.
He's her subject. We have been on here so long that the sun has left all my light. If you guys watch the YouTube of this, it's hilarious. You can see the sun setting and everything. Okay.
I know. I need to come over and set up your new light.
Yeah. All right, Amy, I think you have a question for me.
I do. What do we learn about how Selena views herself in the way that she judges others?
I actually think there's a lot of self-hatred. I think that we've obviously established that whatever Selena says, her ostentatiousness, it's a big front. It's a big, "Oh, look over here, look over here. I'm not the, princess that you're looking for." Like, it's a huge front.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think some of this shows like the seeking of appraisal, this need for recognition, this need for everything. We keep pointing out her pride, her ego, her pride, her ego. If she truly had pride, the right kind of pride, she would be there for her kingdom.
Yep.
She would try to be there for Terrasen. She would be fighting to get an army. That's the kind of pride that would get her through. This is a very weak kind of pride. This is a very egotistical pride. It's not the kind of pride that carries an army, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like every single time we get a very weak, very catty moment from her, it shows her age. It shows a lot of things about her. I think it shows a lot of self-hatred.
Yeah, I completely, I say in our recordings a lot, and I'm recognizing that the more I edit. I think you hit it on the head. I think that Selena deep down has a lot of guilt, and right now she is not in a position she doesn't want to think through that guilt. And as a writer, SJM can't allow her to do that because even Selena's identity is hidden from us as readers. What I think, to Jack's point about the ego, the pride, all that stuff, it's Selena's way of justifying her current existence in the world and saying, hey, you know what? This is where I'm meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good at this. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what the fates wanted.
Yeah.
And that's how she gets through life, is by justifying her current existence through other people's validation.
Yeah. There's good pride, there's bad pride. Like, I don't think we should look at pride as an entirely bad thing. I think, we should take pride in our place. We should take pride in our work. We should look at what we do and say, yeah, I did that. And we should be proud of ourselves. We'll see her get to that point. But God, she goes low. I don't know if we see it until like maybe the last chapter of the last book.
Yeah, it takes a long time to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. But, we're having fun. God, 4 hours. Like, I know editing this will be less than 4 hours. It'll probably be like 3.5, but like these just keep getting longer. And I have faith that, as always, the last like 2-3 episodes, it's going to be a lot lighter because like all of these like, I don't know, fun hidden things are not, it's normally just plot.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that's getting me through this because this was long.
This was long. I have read it and taken notes for the next 2 episodes.
Holy shit.
In my Kindle.
Oh, wow.
Because it's something to do on the train.
And now that we have the Kindle method, it's easier.
Yeah, it's way easier. I feel like I took less notes, but who knows what that will translate to.
The Kindle method is also a deceptive little liar because you're like, oh, so many pages have passed and I only wrote a few notes, but in actuality, it's probably like 3 notes to a single page.
Yeah.
This has been great. Love you. Love this. Let's wrap this up. We've been talking for too long.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy. Next week, we will be exploring chapter 16 through 22 of Throne of Glass.
We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. We would also love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our forum at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a future mini episode or a Patreon exclusive episode.
If you are enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo. You can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk. Bye. So at the end of the scene, we get a new scene, and it's the next day. And when Kale walks into Selena's bedroom...
Wait, say that again. At the end of the scene, we get a new scene.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Thank you to our Patreon supporters, with a special shout out to our October 2024 Trophy Wives. Thank you, Olivia, Allison, Anya, Fiction Fan, Shelby, Liv, Heather, Amber, Veronica, Anne, Jackie, Nicole, Amalade, Jessica, Helen, Danica, Carissa, Colleen, Alexa, Sam, and Allison. To learn more about how to become a Trophy Wife, please visit patreon.com/booktalkforbooktalk. Thank you, Trophy Wives.
My new focus in life and in my wardrobe is quiet luxury. The things that are nice, that make me feel good, but I know are worth the money that I spent on it without being boisterous.
I've definitely noticed that I've been spending more time on elevating what I'm purchasing, and some of my favorite go-to items have been from Quince. That's because they offer a range of high-quality items, but with prices that are within reach and very reasonable.
They have 100% Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50 and washable silk tops and dresses that I love to wear to work.
Quince items are usually priced between 50 to 80% less than other similar brands.
They work with top factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes and cut out the middleman in the process.
One of my all-time favorite cardigans is actually from Quince, and every time I wear it, I always get compliments of how cozy and how soft it is.
My favorite Quince item is this button-up washable silk blouse that I wear to work, and what I love about it is it's so versatile. I can pair it with a cardigan, I can wear it on its own, I can wear it with a blazer, and it always makes me feel good about myself.
Give yourself the luxury gift you deserve with Quince. Go to quince.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK.
The search for truth never ends. Introducing June's Journey, a hidden object mobile game with a captivating story. Connect with friends, explore the Roaring 20s, and enjoy thrilling activities and challenges while supporting environmental causes. After 7 years, the adventure continues with our immersive travels feature. Explore distant cultures and engage in exciting experiences. There's always something new to discover. Are you ready? Download June's Journey now on Android or iOS.